Good morning, welcome back to Daily Red Devil for all of your latest Manchester United news and talk. And as always, we've got an absolutely massive show for you guys this morning. But before we jump into that, please do smash a like on the video and please do subscribe to the channel if you are new. So on the show this morning, we will be talking a bit about the takeover. We've had some news come out from some credible sources because, as I said to you on the show yesterday, the Daily Mail, the Sunday Mail, whatever it was called, is not a credible source. And them saying that the takeover is cancelled is a load of rubbish. So we will jump into that in a little minute. We'll also be talking a bit about the Jadon Sancho situation, which is a complete mess. Also talking about the game yesterday, my thoughts after sleeping on it, how we feel the next day. As always, do get involved in the comment section in the live chat. Let me know how you're feeling about everything we discussed throughout the show. And let's jump straight on into it. So let's start off with the Manchester United takeover. So obviously there was a story that was printed yesterday in the Sunday newspapers, the Mail on Sunday, which is literally the most trash newspaper here in the UK. They were saying that the sale is off and that Manchester United is no longer for sale. We did a video on this yesterday morning, and ultimately I said that I didn't believe it for a second. I don't trust the Daily Mail. I don't trust any of those kind of Sunday journalist newspapers because they all just print lies pretty much. Generally, it's all just rubbish, right? And since then, we've had 2 or 3 what I would call legitimate higher profile platforms, Sky Sports, beIN Sports, a couple of others also coming out with a similar story saying that the takeover is not off. The club is still for sale. So I'll read out a little bit of that and then we can discuss it as a community. So Sky Sports are reporting that the bidders hoping to buy Manchester United still remain interested in the takeover and believe the club still remains for sale. Okay, so that's positive. It then obviously just tells us all about the bids and all the rest of it. And then they go on to say, the theory is that Ratcliffe had the theory was that Ratcliffe had won stories were made up to make the Qatari camp bid more. It then goes on to say the Qatari had won stories were made up to make Ratcliffe bid more. And the sale off stories are also meant to make both bid more. So their theory is that ultimately the Glazers have put this story out to the Sunday Mail, whatever it's called, the newspapers on Sunday, saying that the sale's off to try and increase the bid. I mean, that sounds more believable than the sale being off. We know that the Glazers are trying to suck every little last bit of money out of the club, and putting out this story in the Sunday Mail saying that the takeover is off should, in theory, encourage the buyers to increase their price. I mean, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I would expect that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sheikh Jassim aren't stupid enough to fall for a story in the Sunday Mail, but maybe they have, maybe they will increase their bids. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Obviously, it's been 8 weeks, 12 weeks since the last Qatar bid. I mean, it's been a very long time, hasn't it? I'm just going to have a look when the last date was. So the last date was the 28th of April. So it's been, how long's that? June, July, August, September. It's been about 4 months since we had the last round of bidding and nothing's happened. Now, my theory throughout this whole process has always been that this stuff was going on behind the scenes and that Manchester United were quietly selling the club whilst the transfer window was coming to an end, because it did seem strange that we were doing so many loan deals. It did seem strange that there wasn't any movement on anything. Gary Neville's also been speaking about it. And he says, I don't believe the Glazers are not selling/doing anything story. They have to do something. They've run out of money and the financial situation is desperate. He then goes on to say they need investment. They're also having a toxic impact on the club from the inside out. The negligence continues for now, but I don't think it can go on without some action on raising funds. Also, who would come in as a minority alongside them with the damage it would do to their reputation, which, you know what, I completely agree with Gary Neville there. The Glazers need money. The stadium's falling apart. Obviously, the debt is a massive, massive issue as well, because that massively harnesses what we can do in the transfer window because of how much money we have to pay in these debt, the interest on the debt, which is about £75 million a year. It massively limits what Manchester United are able to do in each transfer window because of financial fair play. So, as Gary Neville says, the club need money. The only way that they get around this is by either getting some investment. Obviously, there are a couple of groups interested in that type of thing. There's people like the Elliott Group, the Carlyle Group. There's 2 or 3 investment bankers over in the America who are interested in investing a small amount of money into the club. But I just don't think that would help anything. And I think that they do need to sell, and I think that they will sell, because when you see how toxic Manchester United is at the moment, I think they really, really do have to get rid of the club. Yeah, and I agree with Gary Neville there. The key bit I took from that thing he said was I just can't believe that report is true. And I completely agreed with him. When I woke up that morning yesterday, I just thought, this is just a load of rubbish. It's just clickbait to, to sell newspapers on a Sunday. And he goes on to say they have spent and invested money this summer, but they have to bring money in, and that will either be through a dilution, some sort of debt on the business, which no one can imagine because of the debt that is already on the business, or they sell. I think the most likely route is that they sell. So that was what Gary Neville had to say. He then goes on to say they're trying to bump the price up, which is the negotiation tactic of many. They don't panic, so they stand strong. They don't rush. They are knowledgeable business people and know that the more they prolong this process, they might get an extra quid or two out of it. So that's exactly how I feel. I just feel like they're dragging this on and on and on and on, hoping that they can get a little bit more money, hoping that, Sheikh Jassim, hoping that Sir Ratcliffe offer more money to them, because you know what, though? I actually think that both of the parties interested are standing strong. I think both of them are, digging their feet in the ground and saying, no, we're not going to offer more. We've offered, 5 to 6 billion. We've offered probably double what the club is actually worth. Either you take the money or we're walking away. So, yeah, it's a bit of a who blinks first type situation. It's who will win, Glazers versus Sheikh Jassim. Who's going to blink first? I still think the club will be sold. We've seen a poor start to the season. Let's be very, very honest here. If we'd won our first 4 games and people were talking about title charges, maybe they would say, okay, we're going to stay. We'll invest money in the squad in January and we'll maybe sell in the future. But, we've lost 2 of our first 2 games. We're in the same form as we were this time last year, which I know is frustrating. I get that. But my point here is the Glazers must now be even more under pressure. Because if we'd won the first 4 games, I'm not saying that people wouldn't want the Glazers to go. They still would, but there'll be less heat around it, wouldn't there? So yeah, they're under immense pressure now. They have to make some sort of a decision because Manchester United fans are very, very frustrated at the moment. Everybody wants them gone. Everybody is disappointed with the results. There's so much things going on around the club that we need some positivity right now. And we just have to hope that... they do the right thing. We do. And I do still think they will do that. But let me know what your thoughts are on the Manchester United takeover in the comment section and in the live chat. Do you think they'll sell? Do you think that they're holding out for more money? What do you think their stance is? Let me know your thoughts. Obviously, as I said, a couple of other people have also been reporting this story. We've had BN Sports, we had Ben Jacobs, we had obviously Sky Sports. A couple of other people all saying that the club is still for sale, that neither Sheikh Jassim or Sir Ratcliffe have been told that it's not for sale. So that story yesterday was just a load of rubbish. It was clickbait, and some people fell for it, some people didn't. I think obviously most of the people who were watching this channel yesterday seemed to be all in agreement that the club is clearly still for sale, and they're just holding out. And this story about them wanting 10 billion, I mean, 10 billion? Like, do they really think Manchester United's worth 10 billion? We haven't won a trophy in 10 years. We haven't won a Premier League trophy in 10 years. The only trophy we've won in the last 5 years is the Carabao Cup. And they really think that it's worth 10 billion. I mean, it's just a load of rubbish, isn't it? There's no way on earth. Even 6 billion was a ridiculous figure. The fact that it's now gone up to 10, I just don't think that's true, personally. But let me know what your thoughts are on it. Let me know in the comment section how you feel about this one. Hopefully, it does just reach a conclusion either way in the next month, really. We need it before the transfer window in January. We really need to know what's going on just so we can stop talking about it and we can move forward positively. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on that one. And if everybody's watching the video now, can please smash a like on the video and subscribe as well. That would be really, really appreciated. It really helps the channel. So please do that if you haven't already. We're about 30 subscribers away from 17,700. So please do subscribe if you're new, and let's see if we can hit that by the end of the video. Right, let's move over to the Jadon Sancho situation now, because that is an absolute situation. I mean, it's an absolute mess, isn't it? That's all I'll say. Obviously, we did a video on it last night. So Erik ten Hag came out after the game saying that Sancho wasn't ill, he wasn't sick, he didn't train hard enough. Which is pretty much the biggest insult you can give one of your players, to say that they don't have even the motivation to train hard enough in order to get picked for the bench. I mean, that is an absolute insult. It really, really is, isn't it? And then obviously Jadon Sancho comes out a couple of hours later with this massive statement on Twitter. The key bits from that statement is that he's saying that it's completely untrue. I have conducted myself in training very well this week. So he's completely disagreeing with what Erik ten Hag said. He's ultimately calling him a liar in the public domain, which is something, in any form of life, you cannot do that to your boss, to your employer. You can't do that. You cannot. I mean, maybe you could do it down the right channels. You go to HR, you do something like that and say, I'm not happy with the comments that Erik ten Hag made. And then you have a meeting privately and you try and sort it out. But for him to come out on Twitter Obviously, that's not good at all. It really, really isn't. And I don't really see where Jadon Sancho can come back from this, to be honest. Obviously, we don't know what the actual situation is. Maybe there's something going on behind the scenes. I've seen a couple of people saying on Twitter, maybe he's leaving the club. Maybe he's going to Saudi Arabia. Maybe he's leaving, you know. That is a possibility. Maybe he wasn't part of the squad because, you know, he's about to leave. I mean, I would be shocked if Jadon Sancho went to Saudi Arabia, but it's a possibility. I mean, we've seen some high-profile players go to Saudi in the last, 2 months? I would say we've seen some higher-profile players than Jadon Sancho. I mean, you think of Sadio Mane, Cristiano Ronaldo, Benzema, Kante, and then there's even some younger players who've gone off there, haven't there? There was that guy from La Liga, I can't remember his name, but there was a player that was wanted by Manchester City and a few other clubs, and he went to Saudi Arabia. Like, at this point, I wouldn't really be shocked if he did end up going to Saudi Arabia, because maybe that's what's going on. But let me know what you think would happen with Jadon Sancho. I think from my perspective, I think when you publicly call the manager a liar, I don't think there's coming back from that, because even if he is in the right, even if Jadon Sancho is right to call him a liar, which, you know, he might possibly be, like, what precedent does that set for the rest of the squad if you can publicly come out and criticize your manager and call him a liar in the public domain? Like, you just simply cannot do that. You can't. You need to do that behind the scenes. Like, this isn't an episode of Hollyoaks or, you know, Emmerdale or whatever. This is a football club. This is the biggest football club in the world, and we need to conduct ourselves in the right way. I don't think what Erik ten Hag said was wrong either. You know, if he's saying, as the manager of Manchester United, that he didn't train well this week, then I don't know. I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because people will say, oh, well, Erik ten Hag has lied in press conferences before. Maybe he's lying. I mean, obviously, if that is the case, then and there's something else going on here behind the scenes, then, you know, you have to wait and see what happens. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you think about this one in the comment section, guys. Let me know your thoughts. The thing for me is, I just don't want to be talking about players calling managers liars and things like that. Like, that's not what we should be talking about as a football club. We should be focusing on football. We should be focusing on getting the Glazers out. That's my take on it, to be honest. Liam says, this is all on Murta. Ten Hag wanted rid of him and Maguire, and he was blocked, and now they're stuck with a toxic dressing room. You know what? I do kind of agree with you there. I think there is quite a few players that should have left the club this summer. You know, you think Maguire, you think Eric Bailly, you think Dean Henderson. Obviously, he's only just gone at the last minute. Scott McTominay. I mean, Sancho arguably should have probably gone. A lot of people were saying that they didn't think he was good enough to be here. The transfer window, although we spent money, it wasn't a good transfer window. And the fact that we're going into the season, we're 4 games in, and we've got this toxicity already. It's really not great. It isn't, and I really don't see how we're going to come back from this. Like, obviously, I'm not going to pass judgment on the actual situation, because I don't know the actual situation. I'm not there in the dressing room. I don't know what has actually happened. But what I will say is, nobody can come out and call your manager a liar. Like, that just cannot happen. Imagine if you did that. Imagine if you did that to your boss at work, right? You had a really bad day at work, and you go on Instagram and you say, my boss at whatever company, and you have a massive profile on social media, is a liar, blah, 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 blah. Like, you're not going to come back from that. You're not. So I don't really see what his end game here is. Does he want to leave? Obviously, in his statement, he says, all I want to do is play football with a smile on my face and contribute to my team. I respect all the decisions that are made by the coaching staff. So I assume that includes Erik ten Hag. He then goes on to say, I play with fantastic players and I'm grateful to do so, which I know every week is a challenge. I will continue to fight for this badge no matter what. I don't get it. I mean, from our understanding, obviously, Erik ten Hag allowed Jadon Sancho, 2 or 3 months off last season because he was going through something mentally, which I completely respect and I think is the right decision. And I just don't really understand what the truth of this story is. And I think we really, really need to get that, because there's so much information being floated around in the public domain and nobody really knows what actually has happened here. It's very, very frustrating. It's very annoying. And I think obviously after what happened in the game yesterday, it just really, really doesn't help to come out and then have to have this. And I think when you look at it like this as well, right, I don't want to single out Jadon Sancho, but if you look at over the last 2 or 3 years, right, we brought him in for £73 million. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer didn't end up playing him. He found him unplayable, right? Ragnick comes in. Obviously, yes, he wasn't a great manager. He also doesn't play Sancho. He found him unplayable. Gareth Southgate, exactly the same thing. He brings him into the England squad and then he doesn't play him. Ten Hag, exactly the same thing, but he has tried. I just think that I think that Jadon Sancho's had enough, and he's just getting frustrated because he's been brought into Manchester United for all of this money. He's on ridiculous wages, and none of the managers that have been here have seemed to have liked him. Ollie didn't, Ragnick didn't, Southgate, when he did pick him, barely even played for England, and Southgate even said that he didn't pick him because he didn't train well as well. That was I think about 2020. Gareth Southgate didn't pick him either, and I just don't know. I honestly don't know what's happening here. But for me, I think that he needs to go in January. I do. I mean, if you could get rid of him now to go to Saudi, I think that would probably be the best thing for everybody, purely because of, the hierarchy. It's a hierarchy at the end of the day. Erik ten Hag should be above all of those players. There shouldn't be any player power. There shouldn't be players coming out on their Twitter and doing statements against the manager. That should not happen. That would not happen in the Roy Keane days. That would not happen, back then. You'd have people coming out on their Twitter to their millions of followers posting, anti messages against your manager. How does that set a positive precedent for the younger players? How does that set a good environment in the dressing room when people think, oh, well, if I don't get picked, I can just write something? It shouldn't ever happen, and that's my take on it. But let me know what you guys think about that one in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts, and I will read out a couple of your opinions on this topic before the show ends. Let me have a look. Daz says, I see a pattern again. I mean, yeah, obviously this was exactly the same thing that happened with Ronaldo. Al says, you can't sell Sancho against his will. Remember, we couldn't get rid of Maguire. Yeah, I hear you, mate. But why would, let me ask you this, right? Why would Jadon Sancho want to stay at Manchester United? He doesn't get picked, which I think is the wrong decision, okay? I do think that Jadon Sancho should have got game time. He had a really good preseason. We start the season and he doesn't get any minutes. I mean, that is a bit questionable for me. I don't get that, and I will criticise Erik ten Hag for that. But what I will say is, Erik ten Hag is our manager. He's the one who's on the training field every single day. He's the one who watches Jadon Sancho train, and I trust him. And if he isn't training well, maybe his attitude isn't right. We don't know, do we? But he's not picking him for a reason. There isn't some vendetta against Jadon Sancho from Harry Maguire. From Erik ten Hag. And that's what Jadon Sancho's kind of making out in his statement, that there's something else going on. I'm not going to get into it. I'm being scapegoated. I mean, if you actually look at the definition of what being scapegoated is, it's a pretty serious allegation. So being scapegoated is a person who is blamed for wrongdoings, mistakes, or faults of others, especially for reasons of expenditure. So it's it's a very, very, it's a very serious allegation, really, what he said. To be accused of scapegoating, it's ultimately that he is being accused of taking the blame for other people. That's not his fault. So he's blaming everyone else. He's not blaming himself. He's not saying, oh, I had a bit of a bad week. I had some stuff going on mentally. I wasn't 100% with my team. I do apologise, and moving on. He's saying that it's everyone else's fault but his own, that he's being scapegoated, taking the blame for others, which he shouldn't. So yeah, I don't know where we come back from this. I don't. I just think it's not what we need at this moment in time when we've obviously had a poor run of results. Even the results we have won, people have been disappointed with the performances. It only creates more pressure for Erik ten Hag. Obviously, my stance on this. I'm fully Erik ten Hag in. But obviously, yeah, it does create a bit of an issue. Thank you, King Stash, for the super chat. King Stash says, all Sancho did in pre-season was score one goal in pre-season versus Arsenal. Rashford, Garnacho and Antony scored in pre-season too. Sancho has to fight for his place or he'll be forgotten. His football ain't doing the talk and his statement is weak. Mate, I 100% agree with you. I do. I 110% agree with you. And I just think that Jadon Sancho, the way that he's dealt with this is completely wrong. And you know what? Obviously, I don't want to, come to too many conclusions too quickly, but from how he's acted and from what he's done today, that makes me believe Erik ten Hag more. I think it's actually worse because it does kind of show like a bit of an attitude problem, doesn't it? That somebody criticises him and he comes out in the press. And not even on the press. It's not even like he's done an interview with, Gary Neville on the overlap or something like that, which maybe could have been conducted in a better way. And he'd say, oh, this has been going on in my life. And maybe it would help us understand what's happening with Jadon Sancho. Maybe it would help us relate to him a little bit, which I'd be all here for. I'm all here for people, speaking out and telling us about how they feel and all the rest of it. Like, that's a positive thing to be doing. But to go on your Twitter, that's just not the right way to do about it. Come on, Twitter. Twitter's the most toxic place of any social media. Why? What does he think he was going to gain from putting that up on Twitter? But yeah, thank you so much for the contribution, King Stash. I really do appreciate it, and thank you for your support. But yeah, obviously it's a difficult situation. We don't know the full ins and outs of the story, but as I said, I do think that there isn't a way back here for Jadon Sancho. The fact that he doesn't even play anyway he plays 10 minutes of a game. Like, why would you keep somebody who only gets 10 minutes of game time, who's just come out and said something like this? It makes zero sense. I don't really see a point anymore in giving him a chance because he's had 2 years here. It clearly hasn't worked out. That's not Erik ten Hag's fault. He didn't spend the £73 million on him. He's tried to make it work. He's tried to bring him into the squad. You know, he gave him his time off last year to go away and, you know, re-sort himself out mentally. And it hasn't worked. So I think the best thing here now is that we separate from Jadon Sancho. He goes somewhere else and hopefully he can just reignite his career somewhere else because, yeah, I don't really see how else we can move forward. But let me know your thoughts and let's move on to the next story. Let's talk a little bit about the game yesterday, Ren, really quickly. Now, Erik ten Hag has come out after the game yesterday and said Erik ten Hag believes everything went against his team during the dramatic late defeat from Arsenal. Now, I wanted to see what you guys think. He's saying that apparently the VAR used the wrong angle for the offside in the Garnacho goal. I'm not sure about that. It was very, very tight, but I'm not going to sit here this morning and say we lost the game because VAR was wrong. I think that's a little bit lazy. We lost the game because we had to bring on Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire in the last 20 minutes. And Johnny Evans and Maguire were directly at fault for the Declan Rice goal. It was a deflection off, I think, Maguire that went in. We should never have to play a professional football match with Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire in the team, ever. Like, as I don't mind one of them coming in for 5 minutes at the end of a game if we're, 1-0 up and you bring in an extra centre-back to try and solidify the game. But to actually have those two in a game that you're then trying to go and win, you're not holding on till the last minute, bringing off a striker, sticking Harry Maguire back in the defence to go for a back five. You're actually trying to build from the back with Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans. So, I don't know. I think blaming the officials is an easy option for Erik ten Hag. He's also obviously blamed the officials for the penalty. And you know what? If anybody has seen the angles of the foul on Rasmus Højlund, that was definitely a penalty. So we should have had a penalty. He's also saying that Gabriel appears to block Johnny Evans off the ball in the goal from Declan Rice, which, you know what? I think he does. I do. So I don't know. It's a difficult one. It's obviously a hard pill to swallow. I don't think we deserve to lose that game. I think a draw would have been a fair result, but you know what football's like. Football is an unfair sport. There was plenty of games last season where we didn't deserve to win and we won. Wolves this season, we didn't deserve to win that game and we won. Football is an unfair sport and that's just what happens sometimes. So I'm disappointed. I really, really am. And I think it just shows how far we've fallen, really, because I said at the beginning of the season, I thought top 4 would be a good achievement. And I still stand by that. I think if we get top 4, I think that would be an achievement. And that just shows how low my expectations are. There was people at the beginning of the season saying we're going to win the league. People saying that, we're going to win the Champions League. I assume everybody's expectations have just gone back to zero now, which we're 11th, I think, in the league. Where are we? Yeah, we're 11th after 4 games. I don't know where we were last season after 4 games. Let me have a look. I don't know if I can get that information. Let me have a look for you guys quickly. I just want to compare where we were last season. I assume we were somewhere around the same point last season because we had 6 points at this point. Obviously, we did then go on and get top 4, which was good. But I mean, if you look at our next few games, right? The next few games should be hard. We've got Brighton at home. We have to beat Brighton at home. There's no way around it. There's no beating around the bush. We've got to now go and beat we've got to go and beat Erik ten Hag. We've got to go and beat Brighton at home. If we don't do that, then yeah, we're in trouble. Obviously, then we've got Bayern Munich away. That's obviously going to be difficult. Burnley away from home. We have to win that game, and then we've got Crystal Palace at home. We need to win the next 3 games in the Premier League. We have to. There's no. There can't be any failures in the next 3 games. We have to win every single one of them. We have to get all 9 points, sorry. If we can go and beat Bayern Munich, then great. Whether or not that will happen, I don't know. I think that'll be a very, very difficult game to do. But let me know how many points you think we'll get from our next 3 games. Obviously, Brighton is an incredibly difficult game, but we have to beat them. We do. We have to beat Brighton, we have to beat Burnley, and we have to beat Crystal Palace. There's absolutely no excuses. But yeah, let me know how you're feeling about everything. I'll read out a couple of your questions. King Stash says, I'd rather play Eric Bailly/Youth instead of Maguire/John. Mate, I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree. I prefer Eric Bailly over both of those defenders. And I just don't know, is there a pattern being set here from Erik ten Hag? Obviously, we know that he sets incredibly high standards, and maybe Eric Bailly, maybe Sancho are just not doing what he's asking in training, you know? Eric Bailly's been completely frozen out of the team. Like, how is there a world where we're still paying Eric Bailly, right? Eric Bailly's on, I think, £80,000 a week, okay? He's not injured. He's fully fit. He's available to play. He's not even on the bench. And he's not even, I don't think he's even training with the rest of the squad, right? He is being paid £80,000 a week by Manchester United, and he's not even anywhere near the squad. Yet you go and give Johnny Evans, who's 35, definitely past his best, a contract when you've got Eric Bailly still at the club. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. And I think it is just Erik ten Hag set these incredibly high standards, right? Which is fine. That's what he set. And if the people don't apply by his rules, if he thinks they're maybe messing around on the training pitch, if they're causing trouble, they're causing distractions, he just freezes them out of the squad. That's what's happened to Eric Bailly. That's what happened to Cristiano Ronaldo. And that seems to be what's happening to Jadon Sancho here. Now, obviously, we don't know the ins and outs of every bit of these situations. But yeah, I do fully agree with you, whoever said it in the chat. Like, it was King Stash. Like, why is Eric Bailly not getting any game time? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Sean says similar things happened at Dortmund with Sancho. I mentioned last week about Sancho's application on the pitch. I can't imagine it'll be any better in training. He's got to go after this now, January. Mate, 100%. I 100% agree with every single person now. There was a lot of people in the summer coming at me in the live chat saying, why are you defending Jadon Sancho? We need to get rid of him. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give him one more season to prove himself. I think I don't want to say he deserves that, but he's 23 years of age. He's still in his prime. He's nowhere near his prime. He's 3 or 4 years away from being what is considered your prime, right? If we go and sell him to Tottenham or someone like that, and he turns out to be this world-class player, it'll be another massive mistake on Manchester United's, books. My stance has changed on that now. Okay, if people work hard, train hard, get their opportunity and take it, they earn my respect. But to come out and do a statement against the manager when we've just lost a game 3-1, that's the wrong thing to do. If we'd won the game, right, and he'd done it, I would have still thought that was wrong. But maybe you could have said, if it was worded differently as well, maybe that would have been a different stance. But we've just lost 3-1 to one of our biggest rivals in a game that maybe we shouldn't have won. It was a very bitter end of the game for everybody who watched it. And then to come out and do that, it just creates a talking point that you shouldn't be talking about, should you? We should have been trying to focus on the small positives, saying, oh, Rasmus Højlund was good. Dalot and Wan-Bissaka were good for most of the game, etc. Like, we should have been trying to bring some positivity out of that game, even though there was very little to bring out of it, But yeah, it's very frustrating. Malp says we're not getting top 4 this season. I wouldn't be surprised with you, mate. I wouldn't. Obviously, apparently, apparently 5th gets you Champions League football this season. I'm not entirely sure if that's 100% correct. Some people have said it has. Some people have said it hadn't. I find it really difficult to find a definitive answer on it. So if anybody knows 100% whether 5th gets you Champions League football, please let me know in the comment section. Malp says the Twitter statement by Sancho is just embarrassing. Mate, it is 100%. As I said earlier, right? If you have a problem with the manager, you should go and do that behind closed doors. You should go and have a meeting with him. Bring your HR, bring John Murta, bring Richard Arnold, whoever it needs to be, someone higher than Erik ten Hag to be there to be witness to that interview. To that meeting. You do that and you try and move forward positively. If you can't move forward positively, then maybe you separate and he goes somewhere else, right? You don't just jump on Twitter and put out a statement. I mean, it's a very childish, immature way of doing things, isn't it? I think. Paul says he's a bad egg. Yeah, I agree, mate. Comeback King says we will lose to Brighton. I doubt it. Or Burnley away here. Winnable games. Yeah, I think we do have to win the next 3 games. Yeah, people in the chat are saying 5th place gets you Champions League football. One quick positive, actually, as Matt has just reminded me. Thank you, Matt. Apparently, Martinez wasn't in crutches or didn't have a leg brace. So Martinez seems to be okay and will be all right. Obviously, he has just travelled to Argentina with Garnacho for the internationals. You know what, though? I'm just praying that none of our players come back injured. We've already got an injury crisis, right? They're now going off to do friendlies, is it? Or qualifiers for something? I'm not entirely sure what it is. It's internationals anyway. We've just got to pray that nobody comes back injured. We really, really don't. And just hopefully we get a bit of clarity on this Sancho situation. I mean, he's done it at the worst time. He's done it, and now there's no football for 2 weeks. There's not going to be any press conferences. Nobody's going to be speaking about it. And everyone's now just going to be in the public domain talking about whether he was right, whether he was wrong, what's going on, and all the rest of it. And it's just the wrong way of doing about it. As I said earlier, it's like an episode of Emmerdale or Coronation Street for anybody who knows what that is, or Hollyoaks. It's just drama, isn't it? It's unnecessary. But yeah, let me know what you think about that one, guys. I'm not looking forward to the international break. I hate the international break. I'm really not that interested in. Obviously, when the World Cup's on, great, exciting. But you know, like qualifiers and stuff, I don't even bother watching it. It's just a waste of time, really, isn't it? But yeah, let me know your thoughts on that one. I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. Thank you to everyone who has joined us this morning. We will, of course, be back later on for another live video. There probably will be a couple of videos coming out throughout the day as well, so keep an eye out for them. Please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel if you're new. This has been Daily Red Devil. I've been Kieran, and I'll speak to you guys later.